esoteric knowledge known as Gnosticism. Gnosticism sprung out of the 2nd century, and it was a group of Christians who broke away from the church, and they started to teach things that were known as inverted hermeneutics. They took the Bible stories and they started to flip all the characters upside down. They took the stories of God and they said, well, actually, God's not a good God. God's kind of the evil God. And all of a sudden, they take the Satan character and they say, Satan's not such a bad guy. He's not evil. He's actually a good guy. This is actually what Gnostics believe. Gnostics believe there's a transcendent, unknowing being called the true Father, i.e. kind of like God, God the Father, or a living Father. And He created the god Sophia. This god, Sophia, was separated from the true Father because it was forbidden to know Him. And she became angry and had a type of an abortion, and she created a god called Yaldabaoth. Now, Yaldabaoth is Yahweh. This is who the Jewish writings write about, the God that we all believe is this God in the Bible. And the Gnostics teach that He was the one that was cast out of the cosmos and confined to the physical universe in which He created. Now, who created the universe? Christ. Was Christ the one that was cast out of heaven? No. So you start to see how it's inverted. The hermeneutics are flipping things upside down. They believe that He is a twisted and cruel God and that He created the material world to be evil. Sophia was the one that channeled the serpent to give the human race knowledge. Hence the word gnosis is where they get that. The word Gnostic comes from the word gnosis, saying that you have divinity in you. And if you can just get to a place of high enough knowledge, you will realize that you are gods. So, Gnosticism is actually saying that this god Sophia that possessed the snake in the Garden of Eden, which was Lucifer, is actually the good guy, because they wanted to teach us that it was God that was the evil God, and He's the one that confined us into this world. Now, has anybody heard of the Gospels of Judas? Anybody? Yes. This was a very popular thing that kind of sprung up the last couple of years. They found all these writings of the Gospel of Judas. And you start to hear now that, you know what? Judas actually wasn't really the bad guy. Christ was the one that was in cahoots with Judas. And He actually told Judas, hey, betray me. So you start to see the inverted hermeneutics of Gnosticism. The Gospel of Judas is stemming from Gnostics. There's also the Gospels of Thomas that were written.
It questions the way Jesus died and what's been considered gospel for nearly 2,000 years. Was Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples with Jesus in His final days, really a traitor? Or was he the favorite disciple given a secret as part of a divine plan?
The Gospel of Judas is a real surprise. It pictures Judas not as the worst villain in the history of the world, as he's always been thought of in Christian tradition, but as the one disciple whom Jesus entrusts with secret understanding.
Basically, she's saying that, look, Judas was a good guy, not like we all believe that he was.
Some of the early Christians are now called Gnostics, or the people who know.
The Gnostics were mystics. That is to say, they were people that felt they could have some kind of direct access to God. The word Gnostic comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. But this kind of knowledge is not everyday knowledge. It is not book learning. It is insight. It is intuition. It is that ability to know something about yourself, to know that you have a spark of the divine inside of you, and to recognize the God that you profess to be, the God that is outside, is the same as that spark of the divine that is within you.
Isn't that the same thing that we were being told in the Garden of Eden? That you are the gods. You have these gods inside of you. And these were teachings that were taught way back, right after Christ's whole mission in the 2nd century. These kind of philosophies have started to pop up. And let me tell you, they have not gone away.
The Gnostics also preached that the body was a prison for the divine spirit within. To them, Jesus' death was a good thing. In fact, that's one reason experts think the Gospel of Judas was written by Gnostics.
The Gospel of Judas turns Judas's act of betrayal into an act of obedience. The sacrifice of Jesus' body of flesh, in fact, becomes saving. And so for that reason, Judas emerges as the champion, and he ends up being envied and even cursed and resented by the other disciples.
Judas wasn't the only Bible character the Gnostics saw differently.
The Gnostics were convinced that the serpent in the Garden of Eden was a good figure. In fact, the Gnostics turned the story of the Garden of Eden upside down because the serpent was a rather engaging character. After all, the serpent said to Eve, "Take some of the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." And to Gnostics, that sounded like a wonderful invitation. Wouldn't you like to have a bite of an apple of knowledge and have all the juice of knowledge in your being?
We believe that the world that was created around us is actually here to control us. And that if we can just get this knowledge, we will find our way back out to freedom and to eventually become the free enough person that you all will become gods. How many people out here have